client from my first Let's Draw video liked the illustration enough to commission another one. So for this video I'll be drawing a newborn baby bungee jumping out of the womb over a canyon. Once again I'm going to be skipping the pencil drawing stage here because it did not really lend itself to recording very well. You can see the original drawing to the left a little bit, and it ended up being quite a bit different. The client asked me to redraw the bridge, and we also ended up going back and forth on the baby's pose 5 times until I finally got it right. I ended up liking the third pose personally, but they wanted him to have kind of a purposeful Olympic-style dive. I also had to do research on cliffs, and so this drawing was kind of sporadic and slow. Just like the last drawing, they wanted the baby to be anthropomorphized, kind of like an adult. I like this one as an antinatalist because the kid is getting thrown out over a cliff, and it's even a better analogy than the jet skiing one. We're thrown into a world of horror and risk by uncaring, reckless parents. In the next frame, I'd like to see the baby bounce back up, thinking that his mother will hold him, only for her to cut the umbilical cord and watch him plummet to his doom below. So I have a comment contest to judge. In my last video, I wanted to get more interaction in the comment section, and so far that video has 52 comments compared to the 6 comments I got on my Corey McCarthy video that I did before that, so that was really great to see. Thank you so much to everyone who viewed the video and left a comment. So, without further ado, the winner of the comment contest is Mr. Antinatalist Person. So Mr. Antinatalist Person will be receiving a full color drawing at some point in the future. His comment had the most thumbs up with 7. He basically wrote an essay in the comment section about antinatalism versus natalism. He doesn't specifically state that he is a negative utilitarian, but you can tell from his context that he is. He goes through some of the most common natalist arguments and dismantles them. He differentiates the negative utilitarian position from classical utilitarianism. For example, if a large group of people get pleasure from harming one single person, does that mean that the victim's suffering is worth less than the pleasure of the many? A negative utilitarian would say no. The pleasure of the many is not equal to the suffering of the one. It was a really great comment. So congratulations for Mr. Antinatalist Person. You can put the name of the philosopher whom you would like me to draw in the comment section below, or just send me a private message. There were really a ton of great comments in this video. It was definitely not easy to choose the winner. I'm just going to go through the rest of them now. Lady Servadi's comment was good for another reason. She's not yet an antinatalist and is just getting exposed to this position. She brings up the child-free arguments of Durian Ryder and Freely, like overpopulation, adoption, and personal freedom. Her comment ended up being similar at the end to the one Etiological made, that negative utilitarianism and ethylism just doesn't click with her yet. I remember that accepting human extinction was difficult for me at first as well. Because I read so much science fiction and dreamed that some of those imaginative realities could one day be possible for the human race. But now I realize that not only are they not feasible, they are not even desirable. Life itself is a negative, and it cannot be otherwise. Another comment that had some utility was Kantinatalist. He has the most reply comments by far with 18, although most of them came from Kantinatalist himself. He had a really good discussion about consequentialism versus deontology with Anti-Bullshit Man. I recommend checking it out. I won't get into Kantinatalist's criticisms of utilitarianism, but it did give me some things to think about. The basic disagreement we have can be summed up by Kant himself when he said, "Let justice be done and let the world perish." Even though he's a Kantian, he has a great YouTube channel with a lot of Aussie antinatalist content that I've never heard before. I recommend you check it out. One of my personal favorite comments was from Poodle Susan. She was the only one to answer some of the questions I put forth in my previous video, like why are most antinatalists meat eaters? She mentioned cognitive dissonance, social conditioning, and denial, which I totally agree with. I like that she mentioned negative utilitarianism and deontological reasons, but that she was too young to understand these categories when she became an antinatalist. She attributes it simply to having a conscience, which is a category I didn't even get to covering in the video, ethical intuition. I also like that her comment had some righteous indignation to it. It's easy to see why people didn't give it many upvotes, as she criticizes ethylism in the very first sentence. I assume that the people watching this video are ethylists, or most of them are. She said that she doesn't like the paternalistic attitude ethylism has for animals, which is an interesting subject and may be worth a video in the future. What she's talking about is Inmendham's metaphor of the good bus driver. Would you rather have a rational human making decisions for the well-being of the animals, or the dumb, retarded, brainless driver of nature? Analytical Sentient made a really good comment. He uses very specific and technical language, just like in his videos. He said, "One way that I prefer to express it is that negative utilitarianism is essentially an ethical framework based upon a self-evidently identified axiology, the intrinsic value property manifest in sensations. Antinatalism, as well as ethical veganism, therefore, is extensionally entailed in the logical progression of negative utilitarianism, even though they can both exist without following from it." So, like Poodle Susan, he mentions that antinatalism is easy to come to with ethical intuition. He then says that he personally is a dual consequentialist ethicist rooted in negative utilitarianism, and that I would argue that negative utilitarianism is an integral part of the philosophy bedrock for any logically robust system of ethics, specifically. And I totally agree. So thanks for the comment. Another passionate vegan became an antinatalist because of Amendum, so negative utilitarian arguments worked on her. And Renesi became an antinatalist at the same time as becoming a vegan. She says she practices rural consequentialism, a kind of mix between deontology and utilitarianism. I have a couple of corrections to make regarding the last video. The first deals with this version of the axiological asymmetry that I borrowed from the vegan antinatalist. Unfortunately, he had to spend his comment on fully explaining himself rather than entering the comment contest. I'll try to clarify this complex issue. I also regret bringing it up because one of my mottos in life, for this channel especially, is KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And subjects like the non-identity problem tend to add confusion to antinatalist arguments. So I want to quote vegan antinatalist directly first. "My modified asymmetry shows that it is always a harm to come into existence, and it is entirely consistent with negative utilitarianism. I, and others, simply dispute Benatar's assignment of, quote, good, in the case of the non-existent person who never comes into existence to suffer, because I hold what is called the narrow pursing affecting view, which in short states that value can only be applied to existent things. Further, when Benatar defended his assignment as good, it showed clearly that he was using a type of special pleading fallacy, where he justifies his assignment of value by using a counterfactual example, but denies that we can use the same kind of justification to show that we can change his assignment of quote, not bad to, quote, bad in regards to a non-existent person who would have been deprived of pleasure, or deprived of good, however one defines it. So I put vegan antinatalist's version of the asymmetry in that video just to be an example of disagreement among antinatalists. Vegan antinatalists and I are both negative utilitarians, vegans, and antinatalists, yet we can still find some very minor things to disagree about when it comes down, and it really comes down to semantics, really. I'm not into analytical philosophy personally. I think I would rather drink acid than read Wittgenstein. This channel is more about applied ethics and activism. So I just want to explain that this chart does not represent what vegan antinatalist and his source for this position, Julio Cabrera, actually think about the asymmetry. What it represents is what he thinks Benatar's asymmetry would look like if he used the same reasoning for non-existent pain that he uses for non-existent pleasure. It's pretty technical, but the problem, according to them, is that if Benatar says pleasure does not matter because no one exists to experience it, then he is forced logically to say the same about pain. That is, because the person does not exist, the pain does not matter either because there is no one here to experience it. Vegan antinatalist still does believe that coming into existence is a harm, but he only assigns value to human suffering if the person actually exists or is certain to exist. Like he said, this is known as the narrow person affecting view. It's not an easy topic to grok or to argue about. Just look at how Peter Singer, a professional philosopher who gets paid the big bucks to have opinions on ethical problems, handles it.
Well, I think we have to really reflect on the assumptions that underpin the two different views here. The person affecting view and what you might call the total view, as Parfit referred to it. And we have to, Parfit was sort of always looking for a coherent theory that could explain, in some way mesh with at least some of our important intuitions and be coherent and consistent. I don't think he ever really found it, although I think there's still some unpublished work that he left to be published. It will be interesting to see what's in that. No, I'm not able to see. If I could see what we needed to do to clarify this, then I guess I would have to have a view about what is the right answer to this question. And I don't really find that, as I say, one of the most intractable philosophical issues that we have.
So as you can see, he completely dodges the question. I must admit this argument is sort of an example of disutility for me because I've had to spend so much time researching it. It's still a bit confusing, but I do not hold the narrow person-affecting view, and neither does David Benatar. I hold that certain acts in and of themselves are examples of disutility, even if no one is around to experience them. For example, I don't have a problem discussing the rightness or wrongness of acts committed by fictional characters like Yahweh or Spock, or by people who may or may not exist in the far future. I don't mind saying that procreation is bad because any example where it could be good are so far-fetched and unlikely. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, classical utilitarians believe that person-based intuition is false, and they have a world-based view. Deontologists may also claim that the person-based intuition is false. For me, procreation itself, the very idea of it, is a violation, a hostile, aggressive, and dangerous act that I can call wrong even if there is no child. For more information, David Benatar discusses the person-affecting view and the non-identity problem in Better Never to Have Been, Chapter 6, Population and Extinction. I'll put a link below to Vegan Antinatalist video on this subject. Sadly, there is not a lot of stuff out there about the person-affecting view. It's only really been around since the early 80s. Benatar's axiological asymmetry rings true for me intuitively and logically, so I'm going to keep using it in my arguments. If other antinatalists don't want to use it, that's totally fine. There are other arguments. Vegan Antinatalist and I are both on the same team here. Same with Kantinatalist. We disagree about normative ethics. Vegan Antinatalist and I disagree about the asymmetry, but we all agree on the ethical position of antinatalism. I'm honestly not exactly sure if my view would be called the unrestricted view, the total view, the axiological person-affecting view, the impersonal view, or the world-affecting view. If anyone would like to comment on this topic, please do. Do you think analytical philosophy makes ethical problems harder or easier to work through? Anti-Bullshit Man pointed out in the comments a mistake on my philosophy chart. For symmetry's sake, I wanted 2 examples of consequentialism and 2 of deontology, but it really should look like this instead, as egoism is more commonly thought of as a consequentialist theory. Some egoists consider it to be equal in stature to consequentialism and deontology as a broader family of ethics all its own. I was trying to remember the last time I was reading about Ayn Rand, where she was equated with deontology, and I finally remembered that it was when I was researching deontological libertarianism on Wikipedia. And here's a quote from the article. Some deontological libertarians, such as Ayn Rand, advocate a minimal government to protect individuals from any violation of their rights and to prosecute those who initiate force against others. Others, such as Murray Rothbard, advocate the abolition of the state as they see the state being an institutionalized initiation of force due to taxation. Another example of this mistake I found in Liberty magazine by R.W. Bradford, the editor, called Rand, along with Murray Rothbard, a quote-unquote moralistic rights theorist, as opposed to a quote-unquote consequentialist political theorist. On the March 1999 issue of Liberty, he refers to the obligation-based libertarianism of Rand and Rothbard. Bradford claims that by the term moralistic he means deontological. So there is some confusion here, and it has to do with the fact that so many libertarians are natural rights theorists. Rothbard does appear to be Kantian, but not Rand. As a consequentialist theory, egoism differs from utilitarianism in that it is agent-focused, whereas utilitarianism is agent-neutral. Most libertarians do seem to be deontologists, as they believe in a Kantian theory called the non-aggression principle. Rand was the one who popularized this idea, but she actually hated libertarians. She called them conservative hippies who just wanted to legalize drugs. But she also hated the Kantian concept of duty, and this is probably the greatest indicator that she was a consequentialist. She considered non-aggression to be a principle, not a duty. Libertarians after her, like Stefan Molyneux, have turned it into a duty they hypocritically do not follow in their own lives. One of the better articles I read about this topic was by Ari Armstrong, called Rand's Consequentialist Theory of Rights, published in 1999. I found it convincing, and I'll put a link in the description. He includes this interesting ethics tree. I think it's interesting because he also includes Christianity under deontology. This is giving it far too much respect. The problem I have with it is that the Bible is a collection of short stories. It's not a book on ethics, so the rules are not well defined, if they are defined at all. Even the 10 Commandments can be widely interpreted. Does "thou shalt not kill" apply to other Jews, as it was originally intended, or is it more broad to appeal to other human beings? But then why not animals? The Gospels, of course, contradict each other, and even Genesis 1 and 2 completely contradict each other right on the first page. Religion and science cannot be combined or reconciled. Christianity is theism, belief in unprovable myths. It is in no way a rational philosophy. Say what you will about Ayn Rand, at least you understood that religion ruins thinking. There is such a thing as deontological ethical egoism, which says there are constraints on morality. For example, one cannot harm oneself. violate one's own rights, etc., even if it would promote more goodness in the world, where goodness is a benefit to oneself. Consequentialist ethical egoists would say that the good is one's own well-being, happiness, or something like that. I'll put a link in the description, mostly for Kantinatalist. I think he might like this article by Keith Burgess-Jackson. I had to sign up for this site to read it, but other than that, it's free. Even though I'm not a deontologist, I enjoy the article for its philosophical overview. So Superhumandance made a great response to my video. It's even longer than mine was. He accepted most of my arguments and spent more time commenting on my video style. A lot of what he said is true. People do like to see faces in videos. I might do face videos in the future, but for now this is easier for me. Like if I recorded myself, I feel like I'd have to hang up the green screen, get my studio lights out, make sure my hair was combed and all that kind of stuff. I can't see myself ever doing a video like his where he just rolls out of bed, doesn't comb his hair, or even put clothes on and just hits record while slurping down his breakfast. Good for him for doing that, but that's just not my style. My channel is mostly inspired by the drawing instruction format where you only ever see the artist's hands. I'm also inspired by history and crime documentaries where the narrator remains unseen. I do show more of myself than some antinatalists do.
I don't agree with the whole physical activity, banana smoothies making you fat thing. That's not how it's ever happened for me. If I eat out, and go to and get oil-drenched food, then I get I put on weight for sure. But as far as smoothies, putting on weight from smoothies, fuck no. No, definitely not. So that was totally wrong. Mr. Spock was wrong there too. It's just...
I had the same attitude when I first went raw till 4, but after a year of doing it, it was inescapably true that I was ingesting more calories than I could burn. You don't see them claim this anymore, but during Ryder and Freely used to say that you could eat as many whole plant foods as you wanted and not gain weight. I'm not talking about obesity here, but just gaining rather than maintaining or losing weight. A smoothie with 10 bananas contains 1,000 calories. I was eating 2 of these a day, plus eating as much rice and veggies as I wanted. I fucking love rice, and I love that during Ryder said I could eat as much as I wanted. I'm 5'8", 150 pounds, and I was ingesting around 3,500 calories a day. It was simply way too much, as I don't do that much cardio. But even my wife, who runs 10 miles a day, gained over 10 pounds eating this way. She has since gone fully raw and likes that better. But you don't have to take our word for it. You can just go to YouTube and search raw till 4 fat, and you'll get a bunch of videos about this topic. Carbs burn faster than fat, but you can actually get fat on carbs if you eat more than you burn throughout the day. I don't know why he called me Mr. Spock. I mean, I know of Spock, but I only saw that show, Star Journey, Star Voyage he was on or whatever, a couple of times. I mean, it's not like I'm obsessed with him or anything. But seriously, he had a valid point that I do appeal to emotion in my videos. I am a sensitive person and sentimental as well, so I just make videos I would like to watch. That is probably why I'm so into Spock as a character. He has the cold, logical attitude that I strive for. Not that I'd want to be Spock entirely. Inmenda made a very good point about Spock once, that if we removed all of the emotion, what would be left? What would be the point then? There'd be nothing at all left to enjoy in life. But every Star Trek fan knows that Spock is half human, and he does enjoy music, he cares for his friends, and he has a thirst for knowledge. He's even been known to smile once in a while. Superhumandance mentioned that Spock committed procreation. This is true, but it only occurred in the novel Yesterday's Sun, which I highly recommend, by the way. It's great. The novel is a sequel to the episode All Our Yesterdays, where Spock goes 5,000 years into the past and evolves to the barbarism of ancient Vulcans before they adopted logic. Because his reason disappears, he falls in love and has sex with a woman named Zarabeth, but eventually leaves her in the past and returns to his own time. So he did father a child from that encounter, but he did it while in a state of madness, and he had no idea that it even happened. I don't think Spock, being a utilitarian, would ever create a child on purpose. It is quite illogical that any Vulcan would have children, really, but it is established in the novel Spock's World that I showed earlier, that although they have a prominent status in the galaxy, the Vulcans are the least populated of any of the alien races, and they are the only people who do not colonize other planets. So thank you to everyone who commented on this last video and for watching the follow-up. I can't say when I'll finish Mr. Antinatalist person's drawing, but it'll probably be in the next month or 2. I did promise a making a video of the drawing as well, so be on the lookout for that. Bye for now.